At a time of global uncertainty and high domestic expectation, Budget 2026 sets the direction for the economy. Joining me to break it down from the industry perspective is Ms. Jyoti Vij, Director General, FICCI. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. Let me get the first question to you. Would be We've heard the finance minister's budget speech. From the perspective of the Indian industry, what stands out most from Budget 2026?
So, continuity and stability is, I think, a big takeaway from the budget that has been just announced. And what I feel is that continuity has given us growth, and stability also helps in bringing in more investors, and kind of gives a sense that yes, we are in a certain direction and it is not going to change. So both of that is very important for economic growth and be able to achieve the goals that we have set out for ourselves. So I think from that standpoint, this is very important. And when you say continuity, I think the thrust on the right kind of areas, be it manufacturing, infrastructure, ease of doing business, ease of living, etc. I think these are very important elements on which the focus has been continuing. And what we also see is that self-reliance as an agenda for achieving the Viksit Bharat goal, because we need a non-disruptive supply chain. I think those aspects are very well taken care of. And while the focus is there on the futuristic sectors like the data centers, MROs and so on and so forth, we have not lost sight of the very core strength of our economy, which is the employment intensive sectors like the textile, the leather, the marine, etc., which not only bring employment but also forex through exports, and the support that the government has announced for the MSMEs. I think very concrete actions, in particular, provision of risk capital, because risk is something which MSMEs may have business ideas, business aptitude, but risk sometimes kind of makes them step back from the business. So if that risk capital support comes in from the government, I think that's a big relief for them. And at the same time, trying to create this whole ecosystem of professionals around them, being able to give them enough confidence to run the business in continuity. I think that's a very positive as well. So futuristic in direction, providing stability to our core strengths, and remain balanced, across the strata of society, across the the regions of the country. So yeah.
Right. So the economic survey tabled 2 days ago talked about global certainty, but also talked about India's own domestic story. Does this budget do enough to protect growth while also staying fiscally prudent given what we see around the world?
So fiscally prudence, I think that's one very important one, because that we have not really done this at the cost of social spending, and yet we have been able to consolidate ourselves fiscally, and I think that commitment is very positive from the foreign investment point of view. So that's very 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 important. But also the fact that on the trade front we have the various FTAs that are not necessarily part of this, but I think FTAs do provide a lot of market access, but also the hope for a lot more foreign investment to come in. So I think that part, which has been already set through the FTAs, and many of the announcements that are being made, which are on the path of the critical reforms, on kind of improving the way we do the business, whether it is easing it or reducing the cost, I think altogether can really help us sail through the uncertainty, be able to find new markets for ourselves, create more accesses for ourselves. So that brings in a lot of confidence into the businesses and hence into the economy and the growth.
So, consumption has also been uneven, both in terms of geography-wise, also in terms of how it's gone sector-wise as well. Does this budget do enough to spur and keep domestic consumption growing, or do you think much of that has been taken away by what the GST announced a few months ago?
Yeah. So last budget, there was a huge announcement on the direct taxes, and that got followed by, the GST that you mentioned, and there's also been the pay commission. So all of that together has brought in a lot of consumption. The recent surveys of ours also show that the capacities are kind of doing very well within the private sector and across various sectors, of course. And we also have the sales books kind of building up already. I won't really say that this budget spurs consumption or not, but I think that path was set. But the fact that government has continued to also focus on capex and has done enough on the demand side before, I think it's time that we wait and watch, because capex can bring in public capex can crowd in the private investments, but and also with the coming in the demand, which has been which we see is coming in through the measures that have been taken in the recent past. I think this budget can at least ensure that yes, the capex will continue while the demand has come in, and I think it's a very positive foundation that has been led for spurring the private investment.
Keeping with the capex part of it that you've mentioned, we've heard something like an infrastructure risk guarantee fund. Has the budget done enough in terms of spurring infrastructure growth?
So there is nothing called enough really, because we're a huge economy,
Right.
we have huge needs, we have limited resources, and which is where I think government is really managing those limitations very, very well, given the fiscal consolidation is being really. So having said that, I think what you see is that they are investing in various aspects of infrastructure, be it rail, road, waterways, ports, etc. So a lot of investment is going in there, and there is continuity. So I think continuity shows that this is an important area of focus for the government, that they will continue to kind of action in this space, and that this will lead to rationalizing the cost of doing business, be able to bring in more jobs, being able to move on the path of the Viksit Bharat, because infra is a real foundation for our growth. So I think enough or not, but absolutely in the right direction in last few years, and that continuity gives us a lot of confidence.
Right. Looking at the agri space, the FM seems to have elevated the discussion a little when she talks about looking at productivity in agriculture and allied sectors. So she talks about focus on sandalwood, coconut, and aspects like that. Do you think the budget has moved beyond subsidies and now taking probably a long-term productivity and resilient mode?
No, so this is heartening, because I think diversification is something that we've been talking about even as an industry chamber. So productivity most certainly, and we also need diversification, because what we have not been able to do very well is the right estimation of what is needed, and also what can enhance the farmer income. I think we have seen this in happening in spurts, but there has been no continuity. So I think what you're seeing here is that the government is also thinking of how to help enhance the income by bringing in the kind of plantations and crops which will bring more money into their hands, because it is not just wheat and rice which is going to be your focus, but also the focus on the areas which can bring in them higher incomes, and the support that could be then extended to the farming community in these areas. I mean, I remember this was in Gujarat when McCain came in, and the potatoes that they brought in and the prosperity that came in for the farmers. I think if that gets replicated across, that's going to be very good. And we've seen them talking about whether it was the the fruits and vegetables, the horticulture
Yes.
push that they brought in, whether the cash crops that they're talking about, whether there are other incentives that they've given to the farmer in the agri space. There's been continuing focus on diversification as well, which is very positive, I feel.
Right. There's been significant number of announcement on the MSME part as well.
Yeah.
One specifically on the MSME, but probably scattered across the budget. There have been different aspects
Yeah.
which touch MSMEs. You think these would make meaningful contribution to the sector?
We do hope so because, like I've been saying, risk capital is the most critical for an MSME.
Right.
So the entrepreneur has the business idea, maybe the business acumen, but something that scares them is risk. And if risk is being supported by someone, and which is government, I think then you have the animal spirits can get unleashed very easily, because I know that I am being backstopped, and I can just put my idea and run with it. And at the same time, I think this whole professional ecosystem that they talked about, they said that we will have special courses with the professional institutions, to create special professionals for MSMEs. That's a very important. This conversation has been there for a while, but and this was being done, at private level. But for the government to really pick this up and make this so big, and I'm sure, if we are able to do this, these professionals are really needed. Even to write a book for the MSME, for him to write a book which will be acceptable to a banker for granting him loan, that's a huge thing.
True.
So that, and of course a bigger push on factoring by ensuring that at least all the public sector enterprises do come onto the TREDS platform, which can be a showcase for the private sector as well going forward. So I think many of these.
So the economic survey did mention, the delayed payment part of it as well.
Yeah.
The FM, could she have done something more? She did something on it the last budget,
Yeah.
but we don't really know what progress has been made. And do you think something more could have been done probably on
So
that?
I think from the government standpoint, they've done enough. They've defined the time limit. They have legislated that. They have brought in the TREDS platform to bring more transparency out there. I think implementation is something which may take time. And from the government standpoint, I think enough has been done. But certain things are cultural, I guess. So I think changing the culture always takes time, but I think there is every intention to do that. And now, of course, the 40-day one is actually getting implemented on the ground. We work with a lot of MSME vendors, and I think that's bringing in a lot of alert that you got to take care of this, otherwise there could be potential fallouts for the organization. So I think that seems to be going in the right direction, and if we continue to focus on implementation, that should be very good.
Great. I think focusing on implementation, that will always remain the key. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Ms. Vij, and taking us through the entire perspective of what it looks like for the industry and the economy.